Hello kids, welcome to the Dreamy journey. Today we will come to a new story about Mari, a little girl and her chance encounter with Cloudmaker, a woman who creates clouds. Hopefully this story will help you have a beautiful dream. Mira had always loved the sky. It was her sanctuary, her place of peace. Every evening, as the sun sank low behind the hills, she would lie in the tall grass behind her house. The grass would tickle her bare feet, and the soft hum of crickets filled the air as the day slowly turned into night. Above her, the sky stretched wide and endless, a canvas painted in shades of soft pinks and deep purples. But it was the clouds that fascinated her most. They were never the same, each one a different shape, a new story waiting to unfold. Sometimes they were great fluffy mountains, towering high above the earth, their peaks glowing with the last rays of the setting sun. Other times they were delicate wisps, light and feathery, like the kind you might find in a dream. And then there were the clouds that made her heart race with wonder. Clouds that looked like dragons, their bodies curled and coiled like serpents, their wings stretching wide across the sky. Or ships, grand and majestic, sailing across an invisible sea in the heavens, their sails billowing in a wind that Mira could only imagine. But as beautiful as they were, one question always burned in her heart. Where did the clouds come from? Her mother, with her soft, warm smile, would say that clouds were made of water and wind, drifting across the sky on a gentle breeze. But Mira knew that answer wasn't enough. There had to be more, something hidden in the depths of the sky, something magical that she had yet to discover. That night, the sky was especially clear, the stars just beginning to twinkle like scattered diamonds. The air had a slight chill, the kind of coolness that made the skin prickle and the breath come out in little puffs of mist. Mira felt it, a quiet stirring in her heart, a feeling that tonight, maybe, just maybe, she would find the answer. She pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders and gazed up at the sky. The stars twinkled above, their soft light casting a gentle glow on the earth below. She felt so small in the vastness of it all, yet strangely connected to everything around her. The soft rustle of the grass beneath her, the faint whispers of the wind in the trees, it all felt like a secret, a whisper shared between the world and her alone. Mira's eyes drifted to the clouds again, watching as they shifted in the breeze. They were beautiful, but the question lingered. Where did they come from? She wanted to know. She needed to know. As the night deepened, the world around her grew quiet, the usual sounds of the day fading into the background. Mira felt the peace of the moment wash over her, the gentle pull of the earth beneath her, the comforting coolness of the night air. But the question remained, sitting quietly in her heart, like a secret she was desperate to uncover. Tonight, she thought, closing her eyes for just a moment, tonight I will stay outside just a little longer. Maybe the stars would reveal something, or the clouds would tell their secrets if she listened closely enough. And so, with a soft sigh, she settled deeper into the grass, her eyes still on the sky, waiting for an answer that only the heavens could provide. The night deepened, and with it, the air grew cooler. Mira pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders, feeling the soft chill creep across her skin. The grass around her rustled gently, stirred by a breeze that whispered through the trees, carrying with it the earthy scent of the evening. The sky stretched above her, vast and star-filled, but the question still lingered in her heart. Where do the clouds come from? She shivered slightly, but the discomfort didn't urge her to move. She wanted to stay, to watch, to listen, as though the night itself might hold the answer. The stars twinkled more brightly now, their glow casting a soft light that made the grass shimmer as though it were dusted with stardust. The wind picked up, a little stronger now, as though the world around her was breathing, and Mira, with her eyes wide and her heart beating faster, waited. And then it happened. At first, it was barely noticeable. A shimmer in the air, like heat rising from the ground on a warm summer day. But this shimmer was different. It didn't dance like the warmth of the earth. It swirled, twisting in the air like a soft, invisible current. Mira's breath caught in her chest. She blinked, unsure if she was seeing things, but there it was again. Clearer this time, a swirl of light and mist, coiling gently as though it had a life of its own. The mist began to take shape, slowly at first, gathering itself in the cool air. It swirled and turned, like a cloud being sculpted from the very breath of the night. Mira sat up a little, her eyes wide, her pulse quickening. What was happening? What was this? And then the figure took form. It was tall, almost impossibly tall, and graceful, like a living piece of the night itself. Mira's breath caught in her throat as she watched the figure unfold. It seemed woven from moonlight, every curve and edge shining with a soft, ethereal glow. The figure was delicate, like gossamer, yet strong. An otherworldly presence that seemed to belong to the sky more than to the earth. The figure turned then, and Mira gasped, her heart racing in her chest. It was a woman, though unlike anyone she had ever seen. Her hair flowed around her like silver mist, cascading in soft waves that shimmered with the light of the stars. Her eyes, deep and swirling like a stormy sky, held a quiet power, a mystery that tugged at Mira's very soul. The woman smiled, a soft, knowing smile that seemed to carry 1,000 secrets. She stepped closer, and the breeze around them stilled, as though the world itself was holding its breath. "You've been watching my clouds," the woman said, her voice low and soft, like the wind through rustling leaves. It was a voice that carried the calm of distant storms and the wisdom of the sky itself. Mira's eyes widened in shock and awe. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The woman's gaze lingered on her for a moment, before she spoke again. "I am the Cloudmaker." The words echoed in Mira's mind, filling her with wonder. She had asked the question, waited in the stillness of the night for an answer. And now the answer had come. The Cloudmaker. The one who made the clouds. Mira's heart fluttered with excitement. Her dream, her question had finally been answered. But she couldn't speak yet. She could only stare entranced as the woman, the Cloudmaker, stood before her, as luminous and mysterious as the sky itself. Mira's heart pounded in her chest like a drum, but it wasn't fear she felt. It was something else. Wonder, thrill, a quiet, electric joy that buzzed in her fingertips and made her breath catch. The Cloudmaker stood before her, glowing softly in the blue hush of night. Her long white hair moved gently, even though there was no wind. Her star-spangled cloak shimmered with a magic that felt older than time. She smiled, a smile that was both kind and deep with knowing. She extended her hand, pale and graceful. "Would you like to see where they come from?" Her voice was like a lullaby made of wind and rain, full of calm and curiosity. Mira stared at the outstretched hand, eyes wide, lips parted just slightly. She gave a quick, eager nod. And then everything changed. The world didn't spin or shatter, simply melted. The tall grass beneath her feet, the familiar trees at the edge of the field, even the cool earth, gone. There was no sound, no movement, just a soft fading. like watching a painting dissolve in water. In its place rose something entirely new. They were no longer standing on solid ground. Beneath Mira's feet was nothing but air. Clear, cool, gently swirling. Yet she felt safe, like the wind itself had woven a platform just to hold her. Around them stretched an endless sky, deep blue and edged with soft glows of violet and gold. Far, far below, the earth was a patchwork quilt, squares of green fields, winding blue rivers, and sleepy villages lit with tiny golden dots. Mira's mouth opened in awe. She felt as if she'd stepped into a storybook, one that had been waiting just beyond the clouds her whole life. She turned to the Cloudmaker, who stood steady beside her, her feet anchored by nothing more than air and grace. The Cloudmaker raised her hand again. This time not in invitation but in creation. A single wisp of mist curled into being between her fingers. It spiraled and shimmered, delicate as breath on a windowpane, glowing faintly in the warm light of her staff. Mira watched, captivated, as the mist twisted and grew, shifting into tiny tendrils that danced and swayed like they had a mind of their own. "This," the Cloudmaker said softly, "is where clouds are born." Her words floated through the air like petals, gentle and sure. Mira stared at the mist, her eyes full of wonder. She could feel the hum of magic in the air. Soft, ancient, patient. It wasn't loud or flashy. It didn't demand attention. Simply was. She reached out a hand slowly, not to touch but to feel. The mist drifted closer, brushing her fingertips like silk made from breath. Tingled, cool and warm at once. The Cloudmaker looked at her with eyes like stormy skies, full of stories not yet told. Mira took a quiet breath. So this was where clouds came from. And she had just stepped into their beginning. Mira reached out slowly, her fingers trembling with wonder, and touched the mist. It tickled her palm. Soft, impossibly light. Like air that had decided to become something more. It didn't feel cold or warm but alive. Not in the way a creature might be, but like a breath held in silence, waiting to become a word. Mira's eyes widened. It was as if the mist had noticed her, and now it was playing, swirling gently around her fingers, curious as she was. Beside her, the Cloudmaker's hands moved with serene purpose. She gathered the mist again, not with force, but with grace, cupping her palms and pulling the vapor inward like she was drawing music from the air. It obeyed her as if it had known her forever. Mira watched as the Cloudmaker shaped the mist into a small, fluffy sphere, no larger than a kitten. It hovered between her palms, gently pulsing with a pale, golden light. Then, with a twist of her wrists and a slow exhale, she stretched the cloud, thinning it into a silken veil that shimmered in the air. Each motion was slow, deliberate, and full of care. Not just movements but a dance, like someone folding a memory, or brushing the pages of a beloved book. Mira's breath caught in her throat as she watched. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "Clouds," the Cloudmaker said softly, "are stories." Her voice floated like a breeze over water. She turned the veil of mist in her hand, and as she did, tiny lights flickered inside it. Shapes, shadows, whispers that Mira couldn't quite make out. "They carry dreams," the Cloudmaker continued. "They cradle memories, echo with songs never sung aloud. Sometimes," she added with a knowing smile, "they even hold secrets of the wind." Mira's eyes gleamed. A cloud passed between them, and in its drifting folds, she thought she saw a dancer spinning, a bird soaring, a tear falling. She wasn't sure. but she felt it. She looked up at the Cloudmaker, her voice small but certain. "Would you teach me?" The woman's eyes sparkled like the edge of a storm. For a moment she was quiet, as if listening to something deep inside the mist. Then she laughed. It was not sharp or loud, but rich, low and rolling like distant thunder echoing across a wide valley. "Then tonight," she said, her smile glowing with starlight, "you'll be my apprentice." Mira's heart skipped. Her skin tingled, her chest felt full, like joy and awe and disbelief were all trying to live in the same space at once. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. And as the night sky stretched above them, deep and endless, and clouds formed from the very breath of stories, Mira stood beside the Cloudmaker. No longer just a watcher of the sky, but now a part of it. The air was hushed and shimmering, as if it too were listening. Mira stood beside the Cloudmaker, her eyes wide with wonder, her heart full of questions. The sky around them stretched in all directions, vast and open, an endless canvas waiting to be filled. The Cloudmaker's hands moved like poetry, fluid, effortless. She turned to Mira, her storm-colored eyes filled with a quiet strength. "Let the breeze guide your hands," she said gently, "but never try to control it. Clouds aren't made by force. They're made by trust." She lifted her palms, and a breath of air gathered between them. Soft, invisible, but full of potential. "Feel the lightest wind," she whispered. "The one that slips between branches, the one that kisses the petals without stirring them." Mira closed her eyes and reached out with careful fingers. The air trembled faintly at her touch. It was like catching a butterfly without a net, requiring patience and reverence. The Cloudmaker nodded. "Good. Now," she said, her voice as calm as a distant shore, "let it take shape." Together they moved their hands through the open air, and a wisp of mist curled upward, spiraling like steam from a teacup. Mira's breath caught as the breeze settled into her fingers, wrapping itself into a soft, pearly bundle. She was making a cloud. "Now," the Cloudmaker said, "color it." From the edge of the sky, she drew down a strand of golden light. It shimmered like honey, thick and glowing. She brushed it gently across the cloud's edge, then dipped her fingers into a blush of rose, swirling in the deepening sky. Mira followed, timid at first. But soon her hands moved with a growing confidence, adding streaks of pink and ribbons of lavender. The cloud shimmered with warmth, like the final light before the stars wake. It glowed not brightly but deeply, like embers tucked beneath ashes, a warm promise in the cooling sky. The Cloudmaker smiled. "This one," she said softly, cupping the glowing cloud in her hands, "carries the whispers of sailors longing for home." She shaped it gently, smoothing the sides until it resembled a ship. Its sails puffed full, its hull strong and proud. It floated in the air between them, glowing with quiet memory. Mira reached out, her hand trembling with awe. Her fingertips brushed the cloud's surface, and suddenly, she heard it. The distant creak of wooden decks swaying on waves. The call of gulls wheeling overhead. A low hum of voices, singing songs beneath the stars. A longing so deep and sweet it tugged at something inside her. Something that understood what it meant to yearn for a place not yet seen. She gasped softly. "It's real," she breathed. The Cloudmaker's smile deepened. "All clouds are. Some carry rain, some carry light, and some carry hearts that haven't yet come home." Mira watched the ship cloud drift gently upward, sailing into the great open sky, glowing like a lantern in the dusk. And she knew this was only the beginning. They drifted together through the open sky, weightless and silent, as if walking through a dream spun from starlight and breeze. Beneath them, the earth lay like a distant memory, a tapestry of forest greens and river blues, stitched with golden fields and quiet towns. Mira floated beside the Cloudmaker, her brown hair lifted by the wind, her eyes wide with wonder. All around them, the air shimmered with quiet energy, the kind that lives only in high places and ancient moments. This was no ordinary night. This was magic unfolding moment by moment. They moved through the sky like painters across a canvas, but their brushes were their hands, and their colors, air and light. The Cloudmaker's fingers danced through the currents with quiet confidence, coaxing breezes into form, tugging moisture from the invisible corners of the atmosphere, weaving them together like a story in motion. Some clouds they made were small and playful, little tufts that spun and twirled in the air like kittens chasing their tails. Mira giggled as one looped around her wrist before puffing into a spiral and floating upward, mewing like laughter. Others were vast and solemn, deep gray and slow-moving, as if they carried the hush of something waiting. These clouds were heavy with the promise of rain. When they passed overhead, the sky darkened gently, and the scent of cool water seemed to drift ahead of them. Each one, Mira learned, held a story. "This one," the Cloudmaker said, pointing to a long, stretched wisp that arched like a bow, "remembers the breath of mountains." "And that one?" Mira asked, her voice barely above a whisper, pointing to a thick, quiet mass that rolled like a sleeping bear. "That one carries the weight of silence," the Cloudmaker answered. "It will bring rain to the wheat fields tomorrow." Mira listened to every word like a student to a poem. She marveled at the way the Cloudmaker never stopped moving, her hands flowing from one motion to the next, her face serene, her purpose unshaken. "The world needs clouds," she said simply. "They bring shade on hot days, rain to thirsty roots, and sometimes they bring nothing but a moment of beauty. And that, too, is enough." Mira nodded, her heart full. She turned her hands to the air, trying to do what she had seen. Her fingers trembled a little, clumsy with inexperience but lit with determination. She gathered a bit of breeze, cupped it like she would a baby bird, and coaxed it gently. A wisp of mist answered, shaky and thin, but it held. She began shaping it slowly, curling the ends in like petals or wings. It wasn't perfect, not yet, but it was hers. The Cloudmaker watched, her smile soft as twilight. Mira didn't need to be told she had done well. She could feel it in the mist, in the sky, and in her own steady breath. The sky had made room for her, and she was beginning to understand its language. The sky was their workshop now, an endless stretch of soft wind and shimmering light. Mira floated beside the Cloudmaker, the air cool against her cheeks, her hair fluttering gently behind her like a banner made of dusk. There was no up or down, no ground to return to, only the sky and the work at hand. They moved slowly, steadily, as if time had slowed to the rhythm of their breath. All around them, clouds began to form, not from machines or science, but from something older, something alive. The clouds were not just weather, not just shapes. They were stories, and Mira was beginning to learn their language. The Cloudmaker's hands moved in a dance of ancient grace. With each turn of her wrist, a breeze coiled and curled. With a flick of her fingers, the air thickened with silver mist. And with her touch, the clouds took form. Some were small and light-hearted, round and bouncy, tumbling through the sky like kittens chasing their tails. Mira laughed as one tried to balance on her head, purring with a soft, whispery hum before popping into sparkles of mist. Others were heavier, quiet. They floated slowly with a presence that felt almost sacred. These clouds held the promise of rain, of change. Their edges were tinged with gray and lavender, and Mira felt something ancient in them, like lullabies sung by rivers, or memories whispered by the soil. "What do they say?" she asked, her voice reverent. "They speak of what's to come," the Cloudmaker said gently. "Rain for thirsty lands, rest for hot fields, shelter for small things." Mira watched with wide eyes as a deep, slow cloud drifted past her. She imagined the roots below the earth waking up, drinking in the drops that would fall from it. She turned to the Cloudmaker, whose hands were still moving, always weaving, always shaping. Her work never paused, never slowed. She was like the wind itself, calm, ceaseless, necessary. "The world needs clouds," she said, her tone soft but firm. "They bring shade when the sun is too sharp. They bring water when the ground is tired. And sometimes," she shaped a tiny heart into the curl of a passing cloud, "they bring nothing but a moment of beauty. And that, too, is worth making." Mira nodded, her chest full of something tender and new. She turned back to the open sky, her fingers outstretched. She gathered a swirl of breeze, clumsily, like trying to scoop water with bare hands. It resisted her at first, slipping through her grasp. But she remembered the Cloudmaker's voice. "Don't force it." She let her touch soften, let the air come to her. Slowly, a puff of cloud began to form in her palms. Uneven, upward, but hers. She smiled, eyes bright with effort and joy. "I made one," she whispered. The Cloudmaker glanced over and nodded. "Yes, and each one you make will teach you something new." Above them, the stars were beginning to blink awake. And Mira, in the arms of the sky, kept shaping her dreams into clouds. The night had grown deep, its velvet folds stitched with stars that blinked softly like old friends. The sky, once unfamiliar and vast, now felt like home to Mira. With every passing moment, her hands grew steadier, her heart bolder. She floated in the open air, the wind carrying the scent of distant rain and starlight. Her fingers moved with purpose and imagination, sketching shapes from clouds as if she were drawing dreams across the sky. First came the horses, strong, wild, and full of energy. Their cloud bodies galloped across the heavens, their manes trailing silver mist, their hooves striking sparks of moonlight. Mira laughed aloud as they thundered past, free and fierce, the wind catching her joy and tossing it across the stars. Then came a castle, tall and proud, its towers piercing the sky, each one adorned with glowing windows and fluttering banners of mist. She shaped the walls with care, stacking layers of cloud like soft stone. A grand archway formed beneath her fingertips, opening into chambers that only the sky could hold. The Cloudmaker watched quietly nearby, her cloak of stars billowing gently in the wind. Her face was soft with pride, the kind that doesn't need words. When she finally spoke, her voice was a gentle hush beneath the vast sky. "You have a gift," she said, her eyes glowing like silver moons. "But remember, clouds are not only for play. They are messages, too. Words written in air and light, carried by wind, read by those who know how to look." Mira's hands stilled. The castle before her slowly drifted apart, its towers fading into wisps. She turned to the Cloudmaker, her eyes wide, thoughtful. "Could I make a cloud for my village?" she asked slowly. "One that carries a story for everyone. One they could see. Even if they didn't know I was the one who made it." The Cloudmaker's expression softened further, her features illuminated by the gentle light of her staff. She nodded slowly, deeply. "Of course," she said. "Clouds speak to the heart, not the ears. What story would you tell?" Mira thought for a long moment. Her brow furrowed slightly as the wind teased a strand of hair across her cheek. "I would tell them that we're not alone. That even on quiet days, when the sky is empty and nothing moves, something beautiful is still watching over them. That every cloud is a reminder that dreams are real, even if you can't touch them." The Cloudmaker smiled, her eyes glistening with something like memory. She reached out and touched Mira's shoulder. "Then shape that feeling," she whispered. "Shape it with your heart." Mira closed her eyes. Her fingers lifted, slow and sure, gathering the night's breeze. A cloud began to form. Soft, wide, comforting. Within its folds shimmered a house, a field, a hand held out in kindness. Cloud that told a story of belonging. And below, the village slept, unaware that the sky above them was now telling a story meant just for them. Mira stood still in the sky, her brow furrowed in thought. Around her, the stars shimmered softly, and the breeze curled like a cat around her ankles. Below, the village lay quiet in the darkness, roofs tucked under moonlight, chimneys still, windows glowing faintly like sleepy eyes. She thought of the village square. How voices sometimes rose too high, how neighbors turned away instead of toward. She remembered the silences that came after arguments, the way laughter seemed to disappear for days at a time. She wanted to change that. She wanted to give them something gentle, something that would speak not in words but in feeling. She reached out, slowly gathering the mist in her hands. It swirled around her fingertips, patient and quiet. With care, she began to shape it. A great, wide cloud, soft and slow-moving, like a blanket pulled across the sky. It grew under her touch, stretching wide enough to cradle the village below. Then she closed her eyes and leaned in, her lips close to the cloud. Into it, she whispered a dream. Not of things but of feelings. Of kindness shared over morning bread. Of quiet moments beneath trees. Of laughter echoing in the market. Of hands clasped without needing words. Of a world where no one felt alone. The cloud shimmered, holding her wish like a secret wrapped in velvet. The Cloudmaker stepped beside her and smiled. She reached out and brushed her fingers along the cloud's edge. Where her hand passed, a trail of silver appeared, faint and glowing like moonlight on water. "Now," she said softly, "let it drift." And together they watched the cloud sail downward. Silent, glowing, and full of hope. Together, Mira and the Cloudmaker stood in the vast stillness of the sky, the stars fading as the first hints of morning colored the horizon. The great cloud Mira had shaped glowed softly beside them, wide and gentle, its silver edges kissed now by the blush of dawn. With one final breath, they released it. The cloud began to drift downward, graceful and silent, carried by an unseen wind. Mira watched, her heart full, as it floated toward the village below. The rooftops still drowsy in the early light, chimneys quiet, windows blinking open like sleepy eyes. She imagined the people stirring from their beds, A baker peeking out his window mid-need. A child rubbing sleep from her eyes. A grandmother placing the kettle on the stove, pausing to glance up. She imagined them all stopping, just for a moment, to look skyward. And there it would be, a soft, glowing cloud overhead, as if the sky itself had laid a hand on their town. Quiet presence, a gentle reminder. Maybe, just maybe, they would feel it. The kindness she'd poured into every swirl of mist. The laughter she tucked inside the folds. The hope she whispered into its heart. Maybe it would settle into their thoughts like a sigh of relief, a breath they didn't know they were holding. The Cloudmaker stepped close, her cloak of stars rustling like wind-blown leaves. She placed a warm, steady hand on Mira's shoulder. "You've done well, little one," she said, her voice low and kind. "The sky will remember your work." Mira leaned into her side, the tiredness finally catching up with her. But it was a good kind of tired. The kind that follows doing something that matters. And as the sun rose, she smiled. As the night's last stars flickered like fading embers, the sky began to change. The horizon softened, brushing the world with delicate shades of amber and pink. The first light of morning spread slowly, a quiet promise of a new day. Mira watched in awe as the sky shifted around her, the coolness of the night melting into warmth. But something else was happening too. The Cloudmaker, once so solid and real beside her, began to change. Her form grew lighter, like mist unraveling in the breeze. Her edges blurred and softened, merging into the vast sky. The Cloudmaker turned to Mira, her smile gentle but full of knowing. "It's time for me to go," she said, her voice as soft as the evening wind. "But you'll always know where to find me." Mira felt a pang in her chest, a sudden ache she couldn't place. Her throat tightened, her voice barely a whisper as she looked up at the vanishing figure. "Will I see you again?" she asked, her heart full of a question she hadn't known how to ask until now. The Cloudmaker's laughter filled the air, light and musical, like wind chimes catching a summer breeze. It was a sound that made Mira's heart swell, even as the space between them grew wider. "Look up," the Cloudmaker said, her voice now drifting like a secret carried by the wind. "Every cloud is a piece of my work. And now yours too." Mira stared at the sky, her eyes wide as she thought of all the clouds, the ones she had made, the ones the Cloudmaker had shaped, all of them now part of the same vast, unspoken story. And as the Cloudmaker's form faded into the dawn, Mira smiled softly. She knew the answer now. She would always find her in every cloud that passed. With a final, soft smile, the Cloudmaker dissolved into the mist. She wasn't gone. No, she had simply melted into the air, blending with the sky until all that was left was the gentle whisper of wind. Mira stood alone in the field, the soft earth beneath her feet and the cool morning air wrapping around her like a warm blanket. The first light of dawn stretched across the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold, as if the world were waking up in a slow, peaceful stretch. The stars had gone, their glow now nothing more than a distant memory, but the sky was still full of magic. The sun climbed higher, casting its golden fingers over the earth, turning the world into something new, something fresh. Above her, the cloud she had made floated peacefully, a soft and gentle presence against the early light. Its edges shimmered with the glow of the rising sun, its shape calm and comforting like a gentle promise. It cast its shadow over the village below, moving slowly, almost protectively, as if it too were watching over the waking town. Mira took a deep breath, letting the sweet scent of morning fill her lungs. The air was fresh, touched by dew and the promise of a new day. It felt different now, charged somehow with the magic of what she had learned, with the knowledge that she had touched the sky in a way no one else ever had. She smiled softly to herself, her heart full and quiet. She knew, deep in her bones, that she would never look at the sky the same way again. Every cloud, every wisp of mist, would now hold a story she had helped to write. And that, she thought, was just the beginning. Back at home, the world felt different. The field, the sky, the air. Everything had changed in a way Mira couldn't explain. She had returned from her time with the Cloudmaker, but it felt like she had brought something new with her. Peace of the sky. A quiet magic that whispered in her heart. As she stepped softly through the dewy grass toward the house, the warm, familiar scent of morning filled her lungs. The wooden door creaked open, and there her mother stood, surprised, her hand still holding the wooden spoon as she stirred a pot on the stove. "You're up early," her mother said, glancing at Mira with a small smile. Mira just smiled back, her eyes bright and full of a secret only she knew. She had never been so full of quiet wonder before, so full of a new kind of knowing. She didn't need words to explain it. The sky spoke for her. "I was watching the clouds," Mira replied softly, her voice still carrying the peace of the sky. Her mother, who had seen every sunrise and every cloud drift through the seasons, glanced up at the sky with a gentle frown. She stopped stirring and looked, her eyes catching the great shimmering cloud floating above the house. It was wide, glowing with the first light of day, stretching like a soft blanket over the land. "It's beautiful," her mother murmured, almost as if she had never truly seen the sky until now. Mira nodded, her heart full of a quiet truth. "It's a story," she said, her voice soft but sure. Her mother didn't need to ask what story. She simply watched, and for a moment they both stood there, listening to the story the sky had to tell. As the day unfolded, the village stirred into life, each person unknowingly touched by the quiet magic Mira had woven into the sky. The clouds, soft and glowing, hung like a gentle guardian overhead, casting its shadow over the quiet streets below. It was unlike any cloud they had ever seen. So large, so serene, glowing with an ethereal light that seemed to soften the edges of the world. Children, their laughter carrying through the morning air, paused in their play. They looked up, eyes wide with wonder, pointing at the cloud and giggling as they imagined shapes within its curves. Dragons, castles, and flying boats. Each child saw something different, something that filled them with joy and excitement. They whispered to each other, as if they had discovered a secret that no one else could understand. The elders too took notice. They sat beneath the cloud, their faces peaceful, a strange, quiet calm settling over them. They didn't speak much, but their eyes softened as they watched the cloud drift slowly above, as if the air itself had wrapped them in a gentle embrace. The usual chatter was replaced by silence, a calm that spread through the village like a warm breeze. No one knew why, but something about that day felt different. The air was softer, the light warmer. The world seemed to move slower, as if it had paused to breathe in a shared moment of peace. People exchanged kind words, smiles were brighter, and even the simplest tasks felt lighter. And there, beneath her favorite tree, Mira sat quietly, her heart full of contentment. She looked up at the cloud, knowing it was her dream, her gift, floating above them all. She had shared her heart with the sky, and the sky had answered in a way no one else could see but everyone could feel. That night, Mira returned to the field, her feet light on the cool grass. The stars above were clear and bright, their light casting a soft glow over the earth. The sky stretched endlessly, full of quiet promise, as if waiting for something. She looked up, hoping to see the Cloudmaker again. the figure who had taught her the ancient dance of clouds, who had shown her how to breathe life into the sky. Mira's heart fluttered with the quiet excitement of the night before, the memory of their shared work still fresh in her mind. She had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that the Cloudmaker would return to guide her once more. But as the minutes passed, the sky remained still. The air, which had once seemed alive with magic, now felt calm, unhurried. The Cloudmaker was not there, and Mira's chest tightened, just a little, as she realized that the moment had passed. Yet, just as her shoulders slumped, a gentle mist curled around her fingers, soft and cool like a whisper. Mira's heart leaped. It was small, barely noticeable, but there it was. An offering, a greeting from the sky. She smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. She knew this feeling. This quiet invitation to create. It was as though the sky had remembered her, and with it, all the lessons she had learned the night before. Mira held out her hands, her fingers remembering the delicate movements of the Cloudmaker. The mist swirled between her fingers, responding to her touch, eager to take shape. Slowly, gently, she began to shape it, just as she had learned. Her heart filled with a quiet joy, and for a moment, it felt as though the sky itself was watching, waiting to see what she would create next. Over the weeks that followed, Mira found herself returning to the field more often. Every evening, she would slip quietly from her house, feeling the cool grass beneath her bare feet, the breeze tugging at her hair. The sky, now a familiar canvas, stretched out before her, waiting for her to craft it once again. She began shaping small clouds, gentle things light as breath, swirling with the stories that filled her heart. Some days she made clouds that danced, twisting and spiraling with the joy she felt in the moment. They floated above the village like playful whispers, bringing laughter and lightness to the hearts of those who looked up. Other times, the clouds she made were quieter, full of soft hopes for those who needed them. She crafted clouds that hung like delicate veils over fields where crops had struggled, or hovered above homes where the night felt too dark. They were not grand or bold, but gentle, whispers of comfort and peace that seemed to settle into the air like a sigh of relief. Soon, the villagers began to notice. They saw the way the clouds moved differently on certain days. How, on the hottest afternoons, the clouds would gather just the right amount of shade, offering a cool respite from the sun. How, on dry mornings, the clouds would drift across the sky, bringing just enough rain to soften the earth without drowning it. At first, they spoke in hushed tones, wondering if it was just the weather playing its usual tricks. But deep down they felt something more. A quiet magic in the air, a sense that the sky was listening. And Mira, sitting beneath her favorite tree, smiled softly to herself. She had begun to understand. She wasn't just shaping clouds. She was shaping the world. Years passed, and Mira grew, her hair darkening with time, but her love for the sky never faded. The field, now a place of quiet memories, still called to her on the softest evenings. The clouds, always shifting, always changing, remained her constant companions. Yet, as the years moved on, she found new ways to share the magic she had learned. Mira became a storyteller, a weaver of words and dreams. She gathered the children in the village around her, sitting beneath the old oak tree, and spun tales of the Cloudmaker, the ancient being who taught her to shape the sky. Her stories filled the air like the very clouds she had once made, painting pictures of magic, of clouds that danced with joy, of mist that whispered secrets, of skies full of dreams. The children listened with wide, eager eyes, their imaginations caught in the stories of the sky. They gasped as Mira described the playful clouds and the quiet, hopeful ones. They begged for more stories, their laughter ringing in the air, their voices full of wonder. But it wasn't just the children who listened. Even the adults found themselves drawn to her tales, their eyes drifting upward as they worked or walked through the village. They would pause, looking at the sky with a new sense of wonder, as if Mira had unlocked something they had long forgotten. They wondered about the stories the clouds held, the dreams they carried, and whether perhaps the Cloudmaker still whispered to the sky, just out of reach. And Mira, watching them, smiled softly. She had become a part of the sky's story now, and she knew that it would never fade. One evening, as an old woman, Mira sat in the same field where she had once met the Cloudmaker. The years had softened her features, and her hair, now streaked with silver, fluttered gently in the evening breeze. The familiar warmth of the earth beneath her, the scent of wildflowers, and the open sky above brought her a quiet peace. The sky was painted with the colors of sunset, fiery oranges and soft pinks stretching across the horizon, as the clouds glowed like embers, burning bright against the cool blue backdrop. Mira had spent countless evenings beneath this sky, but tonight something felt different. It was as though the air itself was holding its breath, waiting. She closed her eyes, letting the breeze dance over her face, the soft wind carrying with it the promise of something ancient, something remembered. It felt like the sky was speaking, as it had all those years ago when she was just a girl. When the Cloudmaker had first shown her how to shape the clouds, how to weave stories into the sky. And then on the wind, a voice whispered. A voice both familiar and distant, like the rustle of leaves and the call of the wind. "Well done, my apprentice." Mira's heart fluttered, the words wrapping around her like a blanket. She smiled, a soft, knowing smile. The Cloudmaker was here in the breeze, in the clouds that floated above her. Always a part of the sky, and always a part of her. For a moment, she sat still, listening to the wind, feeling the weight of her years and the joy of the stories she had shared. The sky had always been there for her, and she knew, as the sun dipped below the horizon, that it always would be. Mira slowly opened her eyes, the softness of the sunset fading into the cool embrace of twilight. The field stretched out before her, quiet and still. But the voice, the gentle whisper on the wind, was gone. She looked around, but there was no sign of the Cloudmaker. The air was calm, the breeze light against her weathered skin. And yet Mira felt no sadness, no loss. Instead, she felt a deep, quiet peace, like the earth had wrapped her in a tender embrace. Above her, the clouds continued to drift, their edges glowing with the last traces of the day's light. They moved slowly, peacefully, as if they had always been there, always a part of her. Mira smiled softly, her heart full of a quiet knowing. The Cloudmaker was with her still, not as a figure she could see, but as the sky itself, in the very clouds that passed overhead, in the gentle breeze that stirred the earth beneath her feet. She had taught her everything she needed to know. And now, it was Mira's turn to carry the stories forward. That night, as the stars slowly began to appear, Mira's breath left her in a soft sigh. The sky, deepening to indigo, seemed to hold its breath with her. The stars blinked softly, one by one, and the world around her grew quiet, the night settling into a peaceful stillness. And somewhere far above, in the vastness of the sky, a new cloud began to form. A wisp of mist gathering into a shape. Slowly, it took form. A girl, her arms outstretched, her body swirling in an eternal dance among the stars. She was a cloud now, forever moving through the heavens, a reflection of the girl who had once dreamed beneath the same sky. In the village below, life moved on as it always had, yet something felt different that evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the villagers paused in their daily tasks. Children playing in the streets stopped, their eyes lifting to the sky in wonder. The elders, sitting on their porches or in their gardens, turned their faces upward, drawn by an unspoken feeling. There above them was the cloud, a shape so delicate and graceful, it seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 dreams. It wasn't like the others. It was brighter, gentler, as if the very essence of peace had woven itself into its soft, billowing form. And in its shape they saw it. A girl, arms outstretched, dancing effortlessly among the stars. No one could say why, but the cloud filled them with something unexplainable. Warmth, wonder, a sense that the world was a little kinder, a little softer. It was as if the sky itself had wrapped its arms around the village, offering a silent promise of comfort and connection. And far above, high in the endless sky, the Cloudmaker watched with a quiet smile. Her newest apprentice had become part of the sky she loved so dearly. Mira's cloud, gentle, beautiful, and full of hope, was now woven into the very fabric of the heavens. It would never fade, never be forgotten. The world would always need clouds, the Cloudmaker knew. They were the messengers, the keepers of stories, the gentle reminders of dreams and memories. And thanks to Mira, those stories would never end. They would drift on the wind forever, carried by the clouds, and felt by everyone who looked up with wonder.